I went camping about 3 weekends ago in the Huntsville National Forest in Texas. Me and three friends that came home for the weekend, and they're all in college, and we usually try to get together at least once a year. Old friends from high school. For the camping trip, we plan to go backpacking deep in the national forest and live off the fish that we catch and the animals we trap. We've been doing this for a while in Texas and in numerous places. Arizona, Colorado, if anyone's familiar with the Spanish Peaks there, New Mexico. So we're pretty much, used to anything you'd encounter out there. It was my turn to pick where we went camping, so I chose Huntsville. More accurately, it's Huntsville, New Waverly. So we drive up there, park our car in the camping park spot, and start walking off into the forest. We had some laughs along the way with everyone catching up with each other's lives, and we walked until it started to get dark and set up camp where we stopped. Everyone gathered wood to make the fire, and we set up our tents, and we do what we always do, and try to scare each other with weird stories. Around this time, we started to smell something very faint. It was noticeable, but not overbearing. We couldn't put our finger on what it was, so we just carried on. Mike had to go piss, and he walked off into the forest. A second later, he came running back, piss all down his jeans like he had missed really bad. Immediately, we all crack up and throw some jokes at him. Then we noticed he was as white as snow and trying to catch his breath. He starts screaming for us to follow him and runs off. We all get serious and go follow him, not knowing what the problem was. We start to hear a faint scream and crying in the distance. In the direction we were running, it was pitch black, and from the camp, we had no idea where we were going. Mike had the only flashlight. We left ours at camp. He still had his from his trip taking a piss, so at this stage we didn't have much choice but to follow the light, which was frantically pointing here and there in front of him. The scream gets closer and Mike starts to slow down. We then notice a ratty old cabin that looked like it was abandoned, except for a faint light that we could see from one of the old mildew-covered windows. The crying was intense. Whoever it was couldn't breathe enough to let out a full yell. We all followed Mike up to the front door. We could all hear the crying from inside. As soon as he knocked on the door, it stopped. We all waited and heard really heavy footsteps walking fast to the door. There was a giant slam against the door and the sound of a bolt locking, and then nothing. We waited for a bit, and knocked a few more times, but still nothing. We walked around the house, and there was no fucking way any of us were leaving each other's side, and noticed a window, which was quite a ways up. Alex took a deep breath and asked us to give him a boost so he could see inside. Me and Mike lifted him up to the window, and we watched him brush away dirt and webs from the window and place his face close to the window to try and see something. There was a quick beat, then suddenly he breathed in fast and let out a loud scream. Then he fell back from the window, screaming bloody murder the whole way. We all tried to calm him down, but he was hysterical. We went to him, and he started to shake, punch, kick, cuss, you name it. And then he took off towards the camp. None of us wanted to be separated, so we all ran close behind him. We caught up to him and grabbed him and sat him down. The fire was dying out, so I grabbed some nearby wood that we had collected and added it to the fire. My hands were shaking and I just had to do something. I went back to Alex and we all tried to calm him down. He wouldn't. He kept screaming and was breathing so hard that he eventually fainted. All of us are terrified now, and we all kept the fire high until sunrise. Periodically, Alex kept waking up, screaming just like before. By sunrise, he was up and looked catatonic, just mumbling to himself and whimpering. Me and Mike decided to go look at the cabin now that it was daylight, and we searched where we thought it was, except there was nothing there. Nothing at all. The indistinct smell from last night had now grown into a very strong smell of something dead, something stale. We headed back to the campsite. When we got there, we found that Alex had chewed into the side of his face and swallowed so much blood that he was throwing up. John was at his back and looked like he was about to die from exhaustion. I guess we all looked that way. I just didn't notice until I saw his face. Alex said quietly, "We need to leave now." We all started to pack up the tent. It started to rain really heavily. It was about noon, but the sky was already starting to grow really dark. Alex started to go into a panic. He went and grabbed a large stick and yelled at us to leave. Leave it all now, or he'd knock us out and drag us out of there himself. Mike started to yell at him, and they started to fight. We broke it up and finished packing, and then started to make our way back. After a little while, we arrived at a creek that we had crossed the previous day, only it was flooded over, and the water was moving too fast for us to cross. Alex started to scream again, yelling at Mike for taking his time packing up the tent when we could have gotten out of here. This went on for a while until we finally convinced Alex to calm down and tell us what happened. He said as soon as he put his face to the glass, the face on the other side did the same thing, started to smile really big. It had dark eyes and a dark mouth, which was much bigger than Alex's, as the smile got large as it could. A giant shadow behind it swung something down and sliced its face off. The face was stuck to the window, and he said it started to laugh quietly as it slid down. Mike, still pissed off, and though he wouldn't admit it, beginning to get freaked out, started to argue with them again. We eventually started to follow the creek for a way to cross. We then started to see toys floating in the creek. Really old toys. Old Barbie and baby dolls. This wasn't like trash floating in the creek, though it was a lot of Barbies and a lot of baby dolls. One washed towards the side and Mike picked it up. It had some kind of voice chip that was dying and started to say some gurgling words we couldn't understand, followed by its sad excuse for laughter. Then it sounded like it was whispering. We thought the batteries must be dying, so he threw it down. We kept going and the sun was starting to set. Alex was freaking out more now and was whimpering and breathing heavily. We all started to see shadows move behind trees, something we all called BS on until we were all seeing it. It was barely light out, and we stopped to see the cabin right in front of us. None of us knows what to think. Mike says, "This is bullshit. I'm going in there." Alex tries to stop him. We all do. All of us just wanted to go home. Mike says to all of us, "Fuck off. Do your own thing. He doesn't care anymore. This is all bull." We started to hear hundreds of the same sort of baby dolls as before, laughing, whispering, and trying to sing. We start to move forward past the cabin, all of us, and we kept pushing forward. We started to smell something dead in the air, something stale, the same something as before. We started to hear something crying and something screaming. We kept on going, and eventually we crossed the creek and left the woods. We got back to our vehicle and got in. It's pitch black and we drive. We're about to get on the 45 to Houston, but the road is under construction and can't be accessed. It points to a detour. As we head towards the detour, it seems to be a small, bumpy dirt road going into the woods. We then see a young girl come up to us. She looked like she was in trouble. Young, very pretty. She approaches the passenger side door and she looks like she's really drugged up or beaten. Alex doesn't roll down the window, nor does he open the door. She reaches for the handle and he immediately locks it. She puts her face on the window and starts to smile, really big. We floor it. Alex starts to scream and we're all breathing heavy. We finally cut on a street that takes us onto the 45 and we take it the whole way. When we get back to my apartment, everyone doesn't know what to say. We all break apart and go our separate ways. Mike messages me later and says that he's gonna go back. I tried to convince him not to, and all he does is say it was our own minds and that it was just screwing with us. I think he just wants to prove to himself that he wasn't scared. I can smell that stench everywhere now. I don't go outside anymore. I just stay in and don't answer the door. Last week, everyone I met was acting really strange. People that I knew for a long time and total strangers. My own dad. When I went to his place to eat supper, he just sat there, watching me strangely. When I was sitting down, he didn't say a word the whole time. I kept asking him, "What's wrong?" And he would just slowly shake his head. When I was leaving to go home, I turned to wave. He had black eyes and an open mouth like he was in pain. And when I started to walk, he shut the door and bolted it. I stayed there knocking. There was nothing. I called him, his phone was disconnected. I even called the police. Halfway through the questions they were asking me, the connection started to fade into static. I could hear faint mumbling, singing, laughing. Mike has completely vanished. There's not even a record of him being alive. When I call Alex's house, they tell me to stop calling, like I'm some sort of salesman. They tell me that there's no Alex here, and they don't know any Alex, and to please stop calling. And the person who tells me this is Alex's mother. I can't get a hold of John. Someone knocked on my door, and when I go to look, I saw a face completely covering the peephole. A giant smile started to form. I called the cops again, and instead of it turning into static, they got really strange. "Sir, are you affected by any drugs at the moment?" "No." "Are you coming home soon?" "Excuse me?" "Come home." And the phone call ended. My mail slot swings open every now and then. Someone is sliding pieces of baby dolls through it. I try to call people now and I just hear static and bad baby doll noises, and the crying and screaming. My TV is busted, but when I go to take a piss, I can hear it on. I might be going insane. Whoever lives above me started to scream in pain and crying deeply recently. I hear giant footsteps from their apartment. I hear the bang, something falling to the ground. From the neighbors to the right of my apartment, I hear what sounds like a baby that never gets tended to, and then it sounded like a baby doll whose batteries are dying. My phone has been ringing now. It's Alex, telling me something in a language that I've never heard before, nor could even manage to repeat. I keep getting emails of pictures of blacks and small correlations, and now I can't even access my email. Someone knocks on the door, and then they slam against it. I hear the bolts unlocking one by one, and I run to make sure that all of them are locked. And then I sit down, and I begin to cry.